Hello, everybody. Welcome to Region Football Weekly in our beautiful Centier Bank Studios. I'm Jack Theo. Alongside me is Mike DeWan. We're just getting set here on this glorious Thursday for Week 3 of high school football. It's crazy to think that we're already at this point. We're starting to see teams kind of, develop who they are. We know some teams who will stay up top of our RSN rankings and some teams who might fight in that bubble area and potentially could make, a last season appearance. But for this show, just like last week, if you were able to watch, we're going to go over our bubble teams and, of course, our top 10 in order. We'll talk about some of the big matchups going on, especially the ones we have in our game nights built by Von Tobel. But, Mike, we'll start it off with our bubble teams. We have 5 on hand today. We'll start with Westside defeating EC 50-6, and they're led by a senior running back who can really, give Westside a really good season.
Yeah, Morian Yaubor. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he had a great day against EC. They won 50-6, but he had a day at the office. From what we got, he had 212 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. So that's a good win for Westside to get back on track, and we'll see where they go from there.
For Andrean now, they are 0-2, but it's so hard to judge this team. They've played number 2 Maryville and number 3 Valpo, 2 teams that we're going to talk about throughout the year and, of course, this show. And, look, we already talked about how Andrean, they lost a lot. They lost Mr. Indiana, Drake Bowen, a couple of transfers to other schools. And to start your season against, 2 of the top teams in the region, it's just a tall task. So, 0-2, I don't think that really represents the type of team they have.
No, I wouldn't say so. That's a tough team to really count out. The NCC is so wide open.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think there's 5 teams that could be holding up the championship for the conference at the end of the season. And I don't think there's a tougher start to the season for any team in the area, other than Andrean. Playing number 2, number 3, the season, outside of playoffs, I don't think it gets harder than that. Mm-hmm. So that's looking up for Andrean, and that's just the sole reason of why we can't keep him out of this countdown.
And, we have Chesterton as well in the bubble, another team who's had a difficult start to their season, a difficult start to their schedule as well. Just lost to Warsaw 8-6. It was a last second with about 20 seconds to go, a 40-yard field goal to win it. They lost on a last, minute field goal to Hobart, I should say, as well. Right. So for Chesterton, 2 straight losses that are definitely a tough pill to swallow. But still, it's a team that can still finish the season the way they want to. It's like we said, it's week 2, but there's still time to, really write the headlines of what your team will be.
Yeah, I mean, they could be 2-0. I think their point differential is -5 through these first 2 games. They lost to Hobart by, I believe, 3, and then Warsaw 8-6 in an old-fashioned slugfest. So I think in that game, Warsaw, they were without their senior running back and receiver, Garrett Lewis, who went down in the third quarter against Hobart. There's no stats on him, so I'm not sure if he played or not. But that Warsaw team's tough. They gave Michigan City all they got, too. They beat them in week 1. So we'll see where they go. They have Chesterton has a big game coming up this week that we'll talk about later. But, again, they're a team that I like them a lot. They looked solid in that Hobart game that I was at, and they're just a team that they'll be in the mix. I believe it.
One of our teams from our top 10 last week, the Morton Governors, they fell to Hanover Central, another team with another tough loss. Hanover Central is one of the best teams in the area, but they gave them a great test. I think a lot of people maybe thought Hanover would have steamrolled through this one, but it was only 24-14. And, if they were able to win this week, they could potentially go into that top 10 once again.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, like you were saying, a lot of people wrote off Morton. Mm-hmm. You look at these matchups that Hanover had in the past few years and their reign of dominance, and they just usually wipe teams out the water. And Hanover did lead wire to wire in that game, but I can't recall a time where Hanover won a game only by 10 points. I really like that Morton team. We talked about it last week, which is the reason why they even cracked our list in the first place. But Holland Harris, he had a solid game passing. I think he's breaking or he's finding himself on our passing yards list. And, we'll see. I got high hopes for him.
Yeah, and then for Lowell, they are our last bubble team, a team that, a really tough loss against Crown Point, but they had a game the next week at the Inferno, still able to beat LaPorte 26-7. It was 400-plus yards of total offense, and they're led by a junior running back in Colton Scott, who is promising to see just because for a team like Lowell, who loves to ground and pound. If you have a kid like Colton Scott who, has this year and he has next year to play with this offense, he could really set himself for a special senior year next year.
Yeah, talk about a bounce back for Lowell. That brutal loss to Crown Point in week 1. And LaPorte was riding in the game high. They beat New Prairie on a last-second field goal in week 1, and Lowell could have been almost seen as the underdog going into that game against LaPorte at the Inferno, but they took care of business. Of course, Colton Scott had a great game, 150 rushing yards, and the offense as a whole, 400-plus yards of offense. That's tough to beat, and they were almost our 10th spot. It's tough to match them up with who our 10-spot team is. But again, that's a team, one of the 5 teams I think in the NCC that you can never count out, especially a Lowell program that, again, I think they've had one losing season since '98. So you cannot count the Red Devils out ever, no matter who they have on the field.
Yeah. So now we'll start with our top 10, and coming in at number 10 for the first time this year, the River Forest Ingots. They're outscoring their opponents 75-0 in the first 2 weeks. They're the only 2-0 team in the GSSC. Very young team as well. They have a quarterback, Aiden Silver, who's a junior, has had a really good year so far. But they've also had senior leaders in their defense and their receiver in Caleb Short. So River Forest, first appearance, of the year, 2-0. And, look, you might want to say maybe play better teams. But at the same time, when you outscore your opponent 75-0 and you have the type of performances these players are having, that's definitely top 10 worthy.
How could you say no? They're the only 2-0 team in the GSSC. Look, I know you want to say, how are they here? They've played these guys, and there's some logic that, hey, maybe this team that's ranked below them would run them out the water. Yeah, okay. If we had that logic, we would put all 7 DAG teams in our list, no matter what the record is, and then the 3 best NCC teams. Because, that logic is flawed, and River Forest is not to be messed around with. I think going into the year, I really thought Calumet was the team to beat in the GSSC, and we circled that game. You and I both talked about it. River Forest and Calumet this past week was a big game, and River Forest skunked them. So they're the team to beat right now in that conference, and I think they have a very good shot to hold up the title come October. So
yeah, absolutely. Coming in at number 9, they suffered their first loss of the season to Providence Catholic. It'll be the Lake Central Indians, a very close one, 28-21, and just to think that the last time they played Providence Catholic was very close. I believe it was 16-14, but a very good Providence Catholic team. They went to their state finals last year in the 4A Illinois side, and for Lake Central, they had a chance to tie it. They were in Providence Catholic's red zone in the fourth quarter, and like a couple minutes to go, and just a turnover on downs. We had an opportunity to talk to Rick Good about it, and he just said, hey, just game plan against the play. Mm-hmm. We tried to run very well, and we just came up short, but still saw a lot of great things. The special teams for Lake Central, and of course Xavier Williams, 2 touchdowns. But this seems like a Lake Central team that is a lot better than years prior.
Right. We can't leave them off the list yet. Again, DAC play, that really shows the team's true colors. We'll see how they do against Portage. A winless Portage, that's never, the Battle of the Indians right there. So that's going to be a big game. But can't never take a team, winless or not, a team lightly in the DAC. So we'll see how they respond. That was definitely a game, I think, to really ride high into DAC play. That's one that really slipped away. Again, that second game for LC always seems to kind of slip away, but we'll again, Portage, I think that's a favorable test for the Indians. But hey, I think we got a little surprise for coming up for the Indians for your alma mater.
So Region Sports was able to go to Lake Central's practice on Tuesday. Kind of a new thing we're going to do with the football team. It's going to be called Tribe Talk, and right now we're going to show you 30 seconds of the first episode of Tribe Talk.
To have this full off season for him where he was healthy and he felt confident.
No, I believe this is one of the biggest tests that we're going to face.
When life takes you places and you can't get to the store, shop online with Strack and Van Til To Go. Our to-go service is easy to use, and it can save you time and money. Once your order is in, our own Strack and Van Til team preps your order with care. For delivery or pickup, enjoy the convenience of letting our to-go team shop for you. Enjoy your special moments. Sign up online today at shop.strackandvantil.com.
Hi, I'm Crowell Company's Lantern Man. I'll cover your motorcycle. I'll be with you on the water. I'll be with you on the snow. I'll cover your insurance needs wherever you go. I'll be at Crowell Agency from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. As Crowell Company's Lantern Man, I'm your insurance superhero.
Crowell Companies, the insurance professionals in Highland, Maryville, and Michigan City.
Welcome back to Region Football Weekly here on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town. We're in our beautiful Centier Bank Studios. Once again, I'm Jack Thiel, alongside me, Mike DeWan. We're now going to head to number 8 in our top 10. If you're just joining us, River Forest, they were number 10, and Lake Central was number 9. So number 8 will be the Hammond Central Wolves, 2-0 so far on the year. They beat TF South 33-6. They have a two-headed backfield in Deshaun Woods and Davian Terry. This is a team that's going to run the ball, and they've done it so far. Their defense has been stellar, only giving up 9 points in their first 2 contests. Kind of a tough test in a way. They have to play Griffith this week, but what helps them is it's at their 3rd straight home game and a chance to go 3-0.
There's no place like home, they say. So that's a nice little perk of the schedule they got going so far. But, yeah, I really like this team. Again, similar to their town mate, Morton. They're a very young team. I love the Deshaun Woods kid. I think he's leading the area in rushing yards from what we got right now. He's got 528 total yards on the year, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
6 total touchdowns is also kind of ridiculous. Davian Terry had a great game against TF South, kind of taking the load off of Woods for a little bit. I like their defense too. Again, a bunch of juniors, man. Class of 25 is coming strong. Jamal Morris, Gio Bailey Hanna, who had 12 tackles and 3 sacks last Friday, so that's performance you really got to highlight. And Anthony Hinton all had great games and good start for them. So I'm excited for them. I think they could definitely climb up this list. Griffith, again, never an easy test with Coach Mason, so we'll see what they do.
Yeah, Griffith coming off 2 straight losses to Highland and Munster, so we'll see if they can bounce back. So we'll go to our number 7 team, the Highland Trojans, 2-0 for the first time in, a very long time. They had a really nice win against Whiting. We all thought this could have been very close, but Highland said, let's just, go up 32-0 in the first quarter. And this is a very balanced football team, and that's why they're our total team effort this week. It starts with the quarterback, Blake Vanek. Rushing and the total touchdowns. Jason Lawrence has been great out of the backfield, and Josh Hubbard, and then a guy like Nick Johnson who can play linebacker but tight end. This is a team for Highland that you can say is probably one of their better teams in a while, especially since it's one of their better starts in a while.
Yeah.
And they'll have a tough test, which we'll talk about in a little bit against Hanover. But for right now, I think you got to like everything you're seeing from Highland. It's a total effort, like you said.
Again, big senior-led team.
Yeah.
We're going to see with these guys and the stats they're putting up so far through 2, there's a lot of guys that are going to be on our statistical rankings that released today. So it's a solid team. I think this game against Hanover at home is probably one of the biggest non-battle the bridge games Hanover's had. Highland has had for a long time. I think if I did my research correct, I think a 3-0 start for Highland. I hate looking ahead, but they haven't had a 3-0 start since the year I was born. So 2001, man, they haven't seen a start like this or a team like this for a minute. So it's great for them, great for the community, and I know the fans are going to be going crazy on Friday, and I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, it's going to be no easy task against Hanover Central, who, we'll talk about them in a little bit, where they're placed in our top 10, but a team who kind of had a tough loss to Hobart Brickies. They lost to Maryville 31-12. It's a really good Maryville team, so it's you look at a loss, but this loss is not that bad of a one if you would think about that. Their run game has been tested very early. Their offense kind of struggled a little bit, but for Hobart, coming off that close win against Chesterton, they had a lot of chances to build that momentum, and another great win against Maryville, but things just didn't go their way, and they fall to number 6.
Yeah, kind of got away from early. Maryville had an 88-yard touchdown drive to start the game, and again, going back to that rush defense, it's been It's been a little shaky for Hobart to start. Again, it's not an easy test going to two DAC schools that, hard-nosed football. They gave up over 170 to Chesterton in week 1. Luckily, they scrapped that one out, but to Maryville, I think they gave up, 359 was the exact number, just on the ground. So it's, they got to shapen that up a little bit. I like their defense. Bradley Gibson is their leader of the defense, and I think he'll get them right. They play Munster coming up, and Munster is a big run team. They have, to my knowledge, I think the second leading rusher in the area, and Daniel Askedam, who had a great game against Griffith. Saying's got that win, so got to plug them. But, I think it's favorable for Hobart. We'll see how they a lot of running the ball. So the defense really is going to probably have to work on that, getting their front seven right. And if they do that, I think they'll have a good chance this Friday. So.
Well, we saw what happens when you stop the Hobart passing game, because a guy like Sorensen at quarterback and then TJ Caldwell, the ever-dangerous receiver.
Right.
When you're able to stop that kind of duo, you're able to find a hole to win that game. And that was, I would say, Maryville's game plan, going from Monday, all the film, all the practices.
Much respect to them, too.
They can run on us, but they're not going to beat us in the air with Caldwell. And that's what they did. I mean, they held them in check until the final drive, which was only against the backup. So, for a team like Maryville to do their homework and to really say, look, you can beat us in the running game. We are okay with that, but we're not going to let your best player beat us.
Right.
So that's a major, kudos to them for doing that for Hobart. If that's the case, they're going to have to find plan B. What's going to happen if the Caldwell connection isn't working? Is there another receiver? Is it going to be the run game? Are you going to run RPOs, options? You're really going to have to think about what can you do other than Caldwell if you're in those types of games where they're double teaming him, triple teaming him, whatever the case is.
Again, hats off to Maryville. I think they are missing a receiver, to my knowledge. Jalen Williams is his name. I don't think he's suited up for the first 2 games. If not, he has yet to record a stat. So I'm not one to comment on if a player is injured or not, but that could be a missing piece that comes back hopefully sooner rather than later and kind of adds maybe another guy to worry about from your corners. But I like the Shearer kid. They could run the ball, and Sorensen could obviously run, but that Maryville front 7 is gross, and we'll talk about them later. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have our top 5, but we're going to do it right after the break as we're watching Region Football Weekly here on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town. Welcome back to Region Football Weekly. I'm Jack Theo, alongside me, Mike Dewan. Now it's time to go through our top 5 teams in Week 3 on the RSN Top 10. The Michigan City Wolves will come in at number 5, a big win against Lafayette Jefferson. The Bronchos 36-30, a close game that they're able to win. And that first loss we kind of talked about, maybe they should have won, but still against a very tough Warsaw team it was, because they're 2-0 now.
Right.
But we finally saw what we expect to see from Michigan City this year. The run game with Jaden Hart, 104 yards and a touchdown. Benjamin Martin, their senior receiver, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. And Caden Pierce led the team with 12 tackles. So we kind of said, that week 1, we were kind of like, okay, Michigan City, tough loss, but they're still going to bounce back some way, somehow. Did against Lafayette Jefferson. They have a close, tough game with Chesterton, and those last 4 meetings have been decided by 8 or less. But for Michigan City, definitely what they needed.
Yeah, our thing going into it is we couldn't leave them out of the top 10 just just like last year. Yeah, they went 2-8, but they had so many games that they just lost by a coin flip. Lost, I think 3 of those games were decided by single digits. So finally, they after after losing that week 1 to Warsaw in a game that they really had. They win a close one against a solid Lafayette Jefferson team. I don't know if they're the team of the past, like last year, that took care of Crown Point, but it's a big win, great win for Coach French getting his first as Michigan City head coach. But yeah, the playmakers finally kind of found their footing this week. Jaden Hart didn't have the best day to his standards last week, but again, finally gets over the 100-yard rushing mark and got a touchdown of his. So it's looking up for Michigan City going into DAC play. If there's a non-conference game to win, it's the one right before you start conference. So Chesterton game, again, those are fun. As we see, going into the past 4 meetings have been decided, single digits. So if City wants to go 2-1 and jump up this list a little bit, they got to take care of business and probably close out in a tight game. So rely on those playmakers to do so.
In Chesterton, they lost on a last-second field goal to Warsaw.
And they could be 2-0,
yeah,
man.
so
It's
just shows
both
you,
teams. So
record, I don't think just yet reflects on the type of team they are. So for Michigan City, like you said, Chesterton, all their games have been close as well. They have been, barn burners. They have been ground and pound. They've
for
been,
sure.
You sweat a little bit when you watch those games. So I think for Michigan City, they'll have their work cut out. But like you said, a win here could move them up.
Hey, every team is 0-0 going on to conference play, so
That
it's a fresh slate. Those non-conference games, you could judge teams off of that. But as we kind of mentioned with Valpo's loss to Penn, it's kind of a benchmark test. It gets the guys ready for when the real games happen. The precursor to the the playoff intensity type games.
Yeah.
These are kind of the mini playoffs right here. So it's again, every team 0-0 and fresh slate. So.
Yep, we were talking about them earlier, but number 4, Hanover Central, defeating number 10 Morton last week, 24-14. It's really their first test in a while just because Hanover has been so dominant. That's why they are our total team effort for this week. The offense, it's clicking. Matt Kuntz, the senior quarterback, 3 rushing touchdowns last week. He's also in the top of the area on our leaderboard for passing yards. And then junior receiver Rocco Bartolomeo, 4 catches for 84 yards. Another guy who's on top of that leaderboard in our receiving yards. But we talked about it. We thought Morton, the first time their tests, I think this one against Highland could be their biggest test just yet because Highland's confident. They're feeling good.
Right.
But Hanover Central, obviously, they're feeling really good. First meeting between these two teams since 1971. But this is one of those games where, obviously, we'll talk about one of our games of the week, game nights built by Von Tobel. But this is one of those games I feel like could be one of those games of the year, one that you maybe weren't expecting to talk about for a while, but this could be one of those games.
Welcome to the NCC Hanover Central. Here we are. If you want to make a statement, silence the doubters saying that you won't compete in the NCC, now's your chance. Highland, again, not an easy test, a lot of talent on that Highland side. And, again, you're playing against a crowd. Cedar Lake it's quite a drive to Highland, too. So that kind of plays into effect. It's a lot, it's tough to pick a favorite for this game. Highland's got the crowd.
They do.
It's 2-0. It's all riding high, battle of 2-0s, and it's going to be fun. But, I like that offense. Matt Kuntz, the leader, I think the one drawback from their win against Wheeler in week 1 was they turned it over just a little bit. What they did against Morton, again, they led wire to wire, and they did a better job of holding on to the ball. I like this team a lot, and it's going to be a fun show on Friday.
I think for Hanover, they didn't feel as nervous when the Highland went against Griffith. It was very close. But then they probably saw the Highland a Whiting score, and they're like, oh, Highland's for real. Like, we have to watch out for them. So
that game we thought would be close, too, which, that's why, I'm so excited. This is a great game.
Both teams coming off a lot of highs. Obviously, Hanover beating a tough opponent. Highland starting their first 2-0 year in a very long time. This is the first time they could be 3-0 in a very, very long time. So both teams are coming in with a lot to play for early in New Year. Now time for number 3, the Valpo Vikings. They responded the best way you could when they fell to Penn. They went to Indrain and won 55-18. Their rushing game was on point, 306 yards as a team, which equates to a 6.1 yards per carry. It's the most points Indrain's given up since 2017. Travis Davis, the second, the senior running back, he has been the guy out of the backfield for the Vikings. He's really just having one of those seasons that you'll remember. But against Indrain, 176 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Valpo, it's a team that's going to run all over you. And look, Travis Davis, the second, they have a good offensive line. Let's not get wrong.
Right. Shout out to the big boys.
But Travis Davis, second, he is a big boy. He's a bull.
Right.
You know, I mean, he is somebody that is very hard to stop. And for Valpo, they have a quarterback in Clark who can make the plays when you need to. But you might as well just hand it off if no one's going to stop the running back. I mean, they really have that luxury of having that run game being so successful and then having the passing game in their back pocket when needed.
Yeah, you got Scotty Bradney, who's had a solid start, the senior wide receiver. He had one catch against Andrean. Luckily, it did go for 66 yards and a touchdown, and he's finding a spot on our leaderboard for receiving yards. But, yeah, you know, the bread and butter for them going into the year, you have some rushers that were just, I mean, I think they had 3 guys going into the year, Clark, Davis, and Berta, excuse me. I don't remember the exact name, Berta, but it was 100, or I think they all had 150-plus carries each, 800-plus yards, and 11 touchdowns each going into this year. So going into it, that's your bread and butter, and they showed that on Friday. And it's good for Davis to, you know, and of course the rest of the Vikings to get that bounce-back game and find their run game. And, again, leading up to Dak play, that's a tool that they need going into this conference play. Is it safe to call them the favorites for the Dak title? We'll see, but this is a good start. And, again, they got a favorable game against LaPorte. Again, that's not an easy bus drive, but it's a team that they've handled, I think, for a couple years now. I don't think they haven't lost to LaPorte since 2016. So it's, again, never can count out a team in the DAC, but we'll if they do take care of business, it'll be on the run game and on Davis's shoulders. So. Yeah,
LaPorte's coming off that tough loss against Lowell, but they did beat New Prairie to start off the year, so they come into that game 1-1. So both teams coming in at 1-1. 1 and 2 remain the same as last week, but number 2, the Maryville Pirates, like we talked about, defeated Hobart 31-12, dominated in the trenches. It's 359 rushing yards, and you can really talk about the tandem because you were there last week between Dante Pope and J.Q. Johnson. I mean, those guys, it just seems like it's Jordan and Pippen out there. I mean, those two. I mean, it just seems like if Maryville is going to run the table and really have themselves a special season, it's going to be with those two guys.
Yeah, like there's no way J.Q. Johnson's only a sophomore.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. From what I saw, he going into this season, I think I don't know if he even logged a carry for the Pirates last year at the varsity level, and he just steps right in with flying colors. He had a great game against Andrean to start the year, and he just follows it up against our previously ranked number 3 team. 160 rushing yards for Johnson. He had 2 touchdowns. And Pope, I mean, Dante Pope has been, I think this is his first year under center for the Pirates. He was previously at Westside, and I don't think he played last year, but he's been one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the area, at least the DAC. He had, I think, over 200 yards through the air, or 200 total yards, but he had 148 on the ground, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns of his own. So if you want to stop the Pirates, you got to start with those 2. But then you get to the other side of the ball, and Hobart, I thought, was a great rushing team, and Maryville just took care of business. Yeah. Hobart only had 75 yards on the ground. They had an average of 2.7 yards per carry. And it starts with Terrell Elmore and Roshan McGee, the 2 All-State guys coming back. They may not have the eye-popping stats that you expect from somebody of those levels. You know, Elmore, D1 commit. Roshan McGee, probably going to be a D1, player if he isn't already. But the reason they're not having those stats is because everyone, you don't want to run towards them.
Yeah.
You want to throw the ball. And, again, Maryville's corners did a great job against Caldwell. You know, he's the top of the top in terms of receiver talent, and they did their part. And I did want to note this. No one on their defense had over 9 tackles that night. So what that means is, maybe a lot of people were playing, but there's not one guy making all the plays. I mean, you get a tackle. It's like a night at Oprah, those, Oprah show. So just handing out tackles left and right for everybody. So it's, they're tough. They're a tough team to beat, but if there's a litmus test for how tough they are, we'll find out with coming to this Friday. So
one of our game nights built by Von Tobel, number 2 Maryville, going into our number 1 team, just doing what they do best, winning football games. The Crown Point Bulldogs, they won 49-7 against Chicago Taft. The defense held Taft to -15 rushing yards according to their Twitter account. Noah Ehrlich, he looks like the best quarterback in Northwest Indiana right now, way he's been able to play. He's only a junior, but 504 passing yards. lot of touchdowns to go along that. The offense has averaged 45.5 points through 2 games, and the defense has only given up an average of 7 through 2 games. So you're giving Maryville, who got these weapons. They've got Pope. They've got Johnson. You got Crown Point, who's like, we've got a defense to stop them. And Crown Point, they were another total team effort for their win against Taft. But Maryville, Crown Point, we'll start with just Crown Point overall first. This is a team that seems to be in for a special season. I mean, you got the quarterback. Seems like the defense is really the strong suit, but their offense can put up points when needed.
Again, and going more on that total team effort, besides the score, how they did against Taft the other day, it was quite the turnout. I know our producer, who's on the show now, was at the game, and it was awesome to see all the orange shirts.
Absolutely.
And it was all for the one purpose of leukemia awareness with Taft's principal and, of course, Coach Craig Buzia. But, besides that, they are a damn good football team. Pardon my French, but they, I mean, Ehrlich, I think he's second in our rankings for passing yards, and I don't think he's played. I think he's played over maybe one full game.
He got taken out against Lowell. I know that,
and he got taken out at halftime of this game.
Okay,
so he's got 504 passing yards in really about a game's worth of work.
Yeah,
so what they're doing, they're just throwing the ball around the field. And you got receivers to catch the ball, too. I know Landon DeLitch had a nice play. Nick Soley, who is I believe our leading receiver in the area, he's got 180-plus yards through the air. He's benefiting the most from Ehrlich coming into town. But they're a tough team. There's not really a weakness so far of what we've seen. If Maryville could find a weakness, they'll have to exploit that, but there's not too many. So we're so happy we're going to be there. That's going to got to be the game of the year so far.
Yeah, well, we talked about it. The Maryville secondary did a really good job against Hobart and Caldwell and Sorensen. Now here's a bigger test against Crown Point. On the road against Noah Ehrlich, who, like we said, he's looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the region. And this is really a test between both of these teams. Now, these losses won't knock them down far in our rankings. I mean, last year Crown Point won 48-40.
Right.
And it seems like if Maryville wants to win, it might have to be in a shootout. If Crown Point wants to win, it could be in the trenches because how good their defense is. You have the Clark brothers, of course. Those guys are beasts, and they can really, change the dynamic of a game. And so can, Pope and Johnson on the Maryville side. 2 guys who can change the dynamic of a game. This is high school football at its finest, I would say.
There's just so much next level talent looking at these guys that are taking the field on Friday. And you don't want to say it's a precursor for the DAG championship, but this is pretty close. It's I don't know what to expect. It's both defenses are great, both offenses are putting up numbers. We could see a shootout, we could see a blowout, we could see trench warfare. I don't know, man, but I'm just again happy we're a part of it. So
both of these teams haven't played close games at all this year.
No.
Both of these 2 teams' 2 wins have kind of been in that blowout fashion. When Maryville played in Drain, of course, Hobart, like we just talked about, those were blowouts. They weren't really close. Same for Crown Point. Against Lowell, they didn't even allow a first down until the second half.
Right.
And then Chicago Taft, negative 15 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So, you talk about when the game's so close, both of these teams, haven't experienced that yet. Now, both of these coaches are some of the best in the area, so they know how to game plan for that and how to really let their team know what he expects from them in that area. But still, these are 2 teams that if we are going to get to a very close fourth quarter, they have not experienced that yet.
Yeah, I'd like to say Maryville might have the slight advantage just because Hobart still, again, pretty high on our rankings. We're high on them. I think that's probably the best team these 2 teams have played out of their 4 opponents, but yeah, they haven't really had to play their starters all 4 quarters until hopefully tomorrow. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it for the rankings, but we're not going to be done here yet. Earlier, we gave you a 30-second teaser of Tribe Talk and what we were able to do at the Lake Central practice this past week. Now we're going to show you the full video, but stay tuned after because Mike and I will return here on Region Football Weekly. But just a reminder, let's go right to Tribe Talk Episode 1 as we're watching Region Football Weekly here on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
It is called Right, Del Right, Gun Right. It's the next one. These are the this will be the third of 3 types of formations that they can run. I told you it's empty.
Lake Central looks to bounce back after their tough loss against Providence Catholic last week. In preparation for their matchup this week against the Portage Indians, Rick Good gets his team ready.
The first play I want you to look at in this formation set is 46 power.
In order for Lake Central to improve to 2-1, they'll look to their defensive leader, senior linebacker Jeffrey Lucas. Jeffrey Lucas had an impressive junior season for Lake Central with 84 tackles and 8 tackles for a loss. Already in his senior year, he has 23 tackles in 2 games with 2 tackles for a loss.
So you wanted to get pushed back into Jeffrey, to Tyler, and then to the tackle. Anything else?
Do we have an empty call?
Empty's just Badger 4, but it's gonna end up being that stump. Badger 4 stump.
Playing for Lake Central means more for Jeffrey Lucas than others. He grew up as a kid watching his older brother Nick play for the same team. Now Jeffrey enters his senior year just like his older brother Nick did years ago as a defensive captain for the Lake Central Indians.
Yeah, no, he definitely impacted me a lot. Showed me how to, do all the things that I do now. Make tackles, make plays, be smart, study in film and stay a good student in the classroom. Definitely helped me become the linebacker I am today in all those ways.
Practice now starts for the Indians, an opportunity for them to game plan against their upcoming opponent this Friday night.
9 across. Okay, first group facing the school. First group facing the school. Everybody knows the drill. In the white. Oh, yeah.
As Jeffrey Lucas is one of the captains of this Lake Central football team, it's important for him when he steps on the football field to lead and set an example for everybody else on the team.
Really?
Yes, sir. What are you doing? Did you side shuffles first?
Nah. Hey, well. Whew. Come on. Somebody got the mouthpiece.
Yeah, Jeffrey does a really nice job for us. He's the one that kind of keeps us loose in the huddle. He's got his peers and his teammates respect, and he plays really hard. And he's a guy in the off season we can really count on to push the pace in the weight room and to make sure that our spring stuff has gone well. So the biggest thing and the biggest jump he's made since last year. Last year he was our leading tackler, and he's doing the same so far through 2 games this year. But it's that leadership role that he's done, over the last few weeks and throughout the summer that really has made the difference for us defensively.
As much as he is a goofball, he definitely, he works really, really hard when it comes to practice time. And, he's one of our leaders on defense. So, whenever it's time for him to, kind of check in and play ball, he's ready to go.
All right, let's go. Hey, everybody knows the rules, right? You got a ball? You got a ball? All right, here we go. 40 to 10. Spot the ball. Yes, sir. Hey, let's go, Mari. Right.
Yeah.
Big Cloudy.
Yeah.
Too high, Peppermint. Too high.
Let's go, Peppermint. Hey, hit them hips. Hit them hips.
Loaded. Shoot. Come on. Go, Chubb. Shoot. Go. Two more. Taylor, hey, one more time. Fourth down. Let's go. 20 down. 20 down. 20 down. Let's go, baby. Let's work, dude.
Winning right now isn't the only thing on Jeffrey Lucas's mind. The senior linebacker is focused on changing the culture for years to come.
I'd say our grit during the practices. We definitely went up during practices. I remember the last couple of years, it was kind of like, not everyone was bought in. And I'd say this year everybody's bought in for the most part. And, we're leaving those stragglers behind and just getting better every single day.
He gets the idea of what it means to be a program and what it means to bring the youth kids around. And, the lower classmen are definitely people he's also, been really good to. So, he's out here for our youth camp every summer. He's really the life of the party. Everything that is being done out there, he's playing with the kids, up and down the field, playing catch. And so he gets that his impact on this program is going to be a little bit larger than just some stats, over a 3 or 4 year period. This could be something that he can look back on as an adult and say that he was one of the people that helped grow the program throughout his time here.
Since his early playing days at Lake Central, Jeffrey Lucas has built a great relationship with his head coach, Rick Good.
But I like how he comes in here, and he really changed the motion of Lake Central. And I feel like we have a new culture that's in town, and it's really going to show this year.
So, to have this full off season for him where he was healthy and he felt confident, it really shows that throughout the last couple of years, his growth not only has been, that physical growth where he's put on a bunch of weight and kept his speed up and good things like that, but, his mental and emotional growth, he's a pretty tough-minded kid just through all the things he's been through and all the ups and downs that he's had throughout the last 3 seasons.
Lake Central will turn their attention to the Portage Indians this Friday night at Lake Central, and what's going to be a crucial stretch in the season. But Jeffrey Lucas is confident that his team could do very good in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, I believe this is one of the biggest tests that we're going to face. It's a bounce-back week for sure. After Providence, they're a really good team that marched in here, and this will kind of get us prepared back for Crown Point. We got Crown Point next week, and it should lead the season off in the right direction. I'd say we're a different team this year. I know you hear that.
We hope you enjoyed that edition of Tribe Talk. We're back here, the Region Football Weekly, in our beautiful Centier Bank Studios. Just joining us, I'm Jack Thiel, alongside Mike DeWan. We went over our teams on the bubble and our top 10. But to wrap up our show, we're going to talk about our 3 game nights built by Von Tobel. We'll start off with one of the games we didn't really talk about a lot, but I think a game that could play interesting is Munster and Hobart. Mm-hmm. We talked about, how Munster has the rushing attack, and Hobart, they like to throw the ball to TJ Caldwell. 2 teams coming in 1-1. Munster, a big win against Griffith. Maybe an opportunity to build some momentum, as you're the former Mustang. But, Hobart can't be feeling too well, obviously, after that loss.
Again, yeah, I think it all comes down to their run game. Mm-hmm. Munster's a team that they have dealt with in the past. I don't think Munster's beaten them since my sophomore year. I was happy to be a part of that game. So
were you starting
2017,
that game?
I was.
How many? Do you remember your stats that
not
game?
Not to toot my own horn. A couple tackles.
Okay,
here and there,
were they tackles for loss, solo tackles?
No, I was. I didn't get behind the line that much. I was more at the line guy, but that's what I'm saying though. Hobart's had their way with Munster for a couple of years since then. So. But now it's a bit different with Munster. They run the wishbone a little bit now, which is something we didn't do, and that really tests your run defense. Mm-hmm. It's all on deception. So you really have to do your homework. Again, Munster has a guy, a bell cow, Daniel Askedam, who had, I think, over 220 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns against Griffith.
Yeah.
So he's, that's a guy to look at to stop if you want to win this handily. So, they hope to get the run defense back kind of in action. Again, it's been a tough 2 games to start for Hobart, and it starts in the trenches. So they got to take care of Askedam and, not really fall for so many fakes on that wishbone that's what it's built for. So
Munster,
really do your homework.
They're not going to really beat you with their passing game. They don't really pass the ball that much. So I'll ask you, DeWan, what's your prediction on this one? Are you going to stay true to your school colors, the Munster Mustangs, or do you think Hobart is going to bounce back after that tough loss?
I think it'll be a battle, to say the least. I hate going against my Stangs, but history shows, Hobart, it's an uphill battle for the Stangs. So I think Hobart kind of snaps it back into place.
You got a score?
No score on
no
this.
Score,
but,
okay.
But I think the Brickies bounce back and keep their spot on this list. So I think it starts. Yeah, right, I'll go with the Brickies. Sadly.
So once again, that's one of our game nights built by Von Tobel. Kickoff is 7:00. That's going to be a video cast. The next 2 games we talk about are going to be audio only, but our second game night built by Von Tobel. Valpo heads to LaPorte. Both teams come in 1-1. One team off a pretty impressive win. Another team coming off a loss that they weren't so happy about. But for LaPorte, they had that New Prairie win. It was one that went to the trenches, and a game against Lowell where it just got away from them. They welcome a team in Valpo who is hungry, We talked about the running game, and we said, we said after week 1 that loss to Penn does not tell you who Valpo is. That's a tough loss. I know we keep mentioning it, but obviously they lost to them last year, still went to the state championship. So Valpo, this is as good as a team there is in the region. And LaPorte, it's a home game, so that helps them, but they might have their hands full here.
Again, kind of keeping that same trend, but LaPorte kind of did not have a great defensive week last week in terms of defending the run. The kid from Lowell, Scott, ran for 150 on LaPorte, and Valpo, that's a team that you really need your run defense going up, playing its best against, and that's kind of the X factor. Again, trench warfare, gotta control the trenches. Valpo's got a great O-line, got a Toledo commit in Hoffer, and of course you just got 5-6 headed beast in the backfield. It seems like they just keep growing. So whoever you throw back there against that O-line, man, they'll do all right. But it starts there. I think I like the Vikings again. I think, again, going back to the history, they've had their way with LaPorte, and I think they'll take care of business again. Probably on the shoulders of Davis, maybe a little bit of Clark running the ball, and I'm sure maybe Scotty Bradney will get a touchdown once again. 1 catch, touchdown performance. Nice day at the office, but we'll see. Again, I want to say Valpo's my team, but you can't count any team with the DAC. So
especially when they're home.
No, it's a nice little bus drive to LaPorte. That's not close.
It's a nice stadium, a nice area, and I'm sure the home side will be there. They're very passionate, in our comments on Facebook and YouTube. They love to hear about their team and watch their team. So I definitely know they'll be tuned in on our game night built by Von Tobel on YouTube, Facebook, and our website, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans there. That one's going to be only audio, just a reminder. So Valpo at LaPorte, game night built by Von Tobel, will be audio only. And our last game night built by Von Tobel, this one audio only as well. Maryville, Crown Point.
1v2.
1 versus 2. Best of the best. You've got stellar players on offense from both sides, but specifically on Maryville, and the defense of Crown Point. Well, good luck scoring against them. Only 7 points so far. And look, one game they've held a team to their first down to the third quarter, and the second game they held their opponent to negative 15 rushing yards. It's really a test between an electric offense and a wall of a defense.
Yeah, I don't really know what the X factor is because, again, Crown Point's offense is also very electric. They spread the ball around and efficiently. I think Ehrlich also has one of the top completion percentages out of quarterbacks in the area. So they do it through the air. Those corners, not just, they can't just defend one guy kind of like they were doing last week, but they really got to. It's a full team effort. That defense, all 11 guys and some are going to really need to lock in for Maryville. And you can't disregard Crown Point's tight ends either. I think last week they said all 3 different tight ends scored through the air last week. So they have it all. Running game solid. I mean, it's both teams. It's what makes Friday night so great. And, again, I'm just ecstatic to be a part of it. And for a prediction, flip a coin, and we'll go with that.
I need to hear which team you think.
I think Crown Point has the little bit of edge being at home, having kind of Maryville's number the past year. I think, again, Crown Point's X factor last year was a quarterback play of J.J. Johnson, who was a North All-Star, who's now at DePaul with a W. But I mean, it's you got Noah Ehrlich now, and he's doing just fine. So I think they got the edge. I hate to pick a winner, but I really like this Pope and J.Q. Johnson duo. Man, it's there's just so much talent. I think that.
So is this a game that
this is loaded?
Is this
question.
A game that's won in a shootout or a game that's won in a low-scoring fashion?
I think we'll meet in the middle. I think they're going to be in the 20s.
20s.
I'd say. I think just well coached all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coordinators through the managers. It's the guys will be right. They'll be ready for the game, and I don't think there'll be many defensive lapses. So no shootout, but I think there'll still be a show. I think it'll be just a great game all around. And
we know Crown Point fans show up for their team. Maryville does as well. They're not even far from each other, so that even helps the rivalry and the amount of fans build up a little more. I know Crown Point games are always packed.
Never been. I think I'm.
You've never been to a Crown Point
Never
game?
been to a Crown Point.
I've been to a couple because I used to go to Lake Central. That was years ago, but I saw some pictures from the game against Chicago Taft, and
Right.
obviously a lot more people there just because of the great signal that it was for leukemia.
Right.
But no matter what, Crown Point brings a crowd. Our producer, Zach Zanelli, was there. He even said, a great crowd. We saw some of his footage, and that place was packed.
Right.
So
It's
you got a team that's not too far from you, and, a rival, I think the place, they might have standing room only tickets being sold,
Yeah, we'll see,
come
man.
Friday night. But, yeah, those are our 3 game nights built by Von Tobel. Once again, Valpo and LaPorte and Maryville and Crown Point. Those will be audio only. And, of course, our video only will be Munster at Hobart. And you can find all those games where you're watching today's show, whether that's here on the regionsports.com or on our Region Sports Network, whether that's on Facebook or YouTube. That's where you can watch all the action. But for Football Weekly, that's about it for us. Dewan, any final words, any final things you're looking forward that we maybe didn't touch on?
Again, I hope all these teams prove me wrong too. That's kind of why we do this. Of course, we want to highlight the teams that do well, but those teams, maybe we're not picking to win the game. We're not being in our rankings. I hope that puts a target on your back, and I hope you guys prove us wrong. So it keeps us talking like this,
Yeah.
make me look stupid, basically. So make us both look stupid. But other than that, man, let's have a good Friday, and let's do it, man.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
been fun.
A big thank you to our producer, Zach Zanelli, of course, you, Mike Dewan, and here in our beautiful Sentier Bank Studios.
Beauty.
As I'm Jack Theo, and you're watching Region Football Weekly here on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.